Any other questions here? You were asking about functional representation in guild socialism. Functional representation. I think all other forms are quite easy of socialism. They support functional representation, which means that every representation, just read this entire line before it. They want to abolish wage system. Instead, they support distribution made on it. They also support functional representation. What will happen here? That every class has a certain function, and that class will be represented in the legislative body. Like workers will be represented by a worker. Okay, engineers by an engineer. Functional representation. Whatever function you have, you will be having a chance to represent the entire group. That is what it is. Can we move now? Any other doubts? Okay, then let us catch with the next thinker. Or if you have doubts, please ask. Is it okay? So today I'll tell you about another Marxist, second important Marxist thinker in our syllabus. The name is Antonio Gramsci. Now, who was Antonio Gramsci? He is the founder of Communist Party of Italy. And when he came there, actually there is again a certain history to it that I would like to tell you, that the rise of fascism in Italy and the rise of Nazism in Germany, it is attributed to certain factors. Now, what are these factors? There was a treaty done by the Western democracies with Germany after First World War. That's called Treaty of Versailles. According to that Treaty of Versailles, there were several restrictions put on the Germany. Now, one by one, let us not go into the details because that is something that you have to study in your history. One by one, the moment Hitler came into the scheme of things in Germany, he started violating every provision of this Treaty of Versailles. Now, Hitler never won a majority. Okay, he couldn't even win 1/3 of the seats in German legislature, but he acquired power. He became the Chancellor of Germany, and the King or the President of Germany actually invited him to form the government, despite not having a majority. Now, what happens? He comes and he unleashes his reign of terror. He starts killing people, and he was targeting the communists and the socialists. Now, whatever reason he had, because communists do not believe in the concept of nation state, Hitler, extreme nationalism or chauvinism, my own country, right or wrong. Okay, extreme form of nationalism. So naturally, he was targeting the communists. After 1917 Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, Comintern was formed, which had an intention of bringing communist revolution in all the countries through their respective communist parties. That is how in 1925 CPI was established in India under M.N. Roy, who went there to participate in Comintern. Now, Western countries were becoming very susceptible. They were very anxious. They were very scared that maybe the communists will come into our country like they came in Russia. So when Hitler was killing the communists, they were very happy. Same thing Mussolini was doing in Italy. Again, they were happy. Now, this episode is known as appeasement policy, that US, UK and France tolerated Hitler and Mussolini despite Hitler violating the Treaty of Versailles with impunity because he was targeting the communists. They were actually hoping that we will shoo him to Russia. Okay, now fascist versus communist, whoever wins, America and England and France will enjoy. Okay, but history had other plans. So classes like Hitler and Mussolini, both of them were targeting the communists. Now this Gramsci guy, he was jailed. He was jailed by Hitler. Now let us see what happens. You understood the introduction? Why Hitler and Mussolini were targeting communists and what encouraged them? The appeasement policy by the Western countries. Any doubts here? That's Antonio Gramsci for you. That's Gramsci. Now see, that's his hairstyle. Renowned Italian Marxist, founder of Communist Party of Italy, contemporary of Mussolini, was jailed by Mussolini. And in jail, he wrote a book. The book is called Prison Notebooks. Now, he will change the concept of revolution which Marx has given. How we'll see that? His theory is based on origin of Marx's conception concerning the development and operation of the capitalist society. Of course, he's a Marxist. He endorses the same theory that capitalism is a devil system, must go. It's for the betterment of everyone that capitalism goes on. That he's saying. But his methods are, his revolution is not like what Marx says, that at one go there will be a revolution, and where people will dethrone the capitalists. That is not what he endorses. So what he endorses actually noteworthy innovation in these writings, prison notebooks, includes Gramsci thesis on a hegemony. He talks about hegemony, the role of intellectuals and the status of peasantry in left analysis. This is the main thing. This is where he is different from remaining Marxist. Right? He focuses on hegemony, focuses on it's called narrative building. Shall I first explain it to you and then I can proceed? Will that be okay, or you want to go with slide by slide? You tell. Please tell. Okay, I explain. Let me put my apparatus in place now. This way it will become very smooth, right? When I explain you everything. See, I can move either way, whatever you want. Here also I write also. Okay, let us move and then I'll keep on writing. Okay, let us move, I'll keep on writing. Notion of hegemony was developed by Gramsci to elaborate the revolutionary character of the working class. Now, what is this hegemony? This is something very unique to Marxist discourse because Karl Marx has not talked about these things. But he talks about, we call as hegemony. You all know the meaning of hegemony. In Hindi, it's called dadagiri, right? But what actually is hegemony here? So here he says that there are two things, and we shall see them. Hegemony accounts for how domination is exercised apart from pressure and force. So, what is hegemony for this guy? He's saying that it is how domination is exercised. There can be pressure. You can pressurize people, and you can ask them to follow certain norms. They will not kind of resist you because they are scared of you. When you are the hegemon, when you are having all the hegemonic powers in the world, maybe the world will obey you because they are scared of you, right? But what is he saying now? What is he saying? That there is something other than pressure and force, and that he describes as hegemony. Now, what is that one thing? He analyzed role of cultural factors in shaping history, and there he talks about structuralism, approach to analyze the complex reality. He talks about structuralism. What is structuralism? It is an approach to analyze the complex reality. So what complex reality is? Let us see this. Tries to analyze the complex reality. Now what it is? Like fundamental type of reality. Okay. There you are trying to analyze it. This is the structuralism. Like you see what Marx would say, economic structure, he will make it a base, and all other structures, legal, religious, societal, political, administrative would be based on. So this he calls a fundamental reality. He says, let us try to question that. Let us try to understand that. Now further he says that economic structure is the substructure and other institutions are superstructure. The same thing that we have drawn here. Change is needed only at substructure. This is what the substructure was. So here the change was needed to bring change in any one of them or all. A change here would impact a change here, right? Superstructure would change automatically. Now again try to understand this. Gramsci was concerned to eliminate economic determinism from Marxism and to develop its descriptive power with respect to superstructural institutions. What does that mean? He has used the term integral state, very important. He has used this term, see, which combines civil society and state. So his integral state is civil society plus state. So there is something other than state that is at play, that is civil society. Now civil society it is an intermediate structure which is nearer to the base. See, economic, this is the base. Now all other religion, legal, societal, political, administrative, all are based on this. Now he concept of civil society like this. Okay, wait, let me make a better drawing. Economics base हो गया, religion, culture, legal, political, administrative. ये सब किस पे based है? Economic पे based है. Now there is something called civil society which is nearer to the base than other institutions. यहाँ तक है समझ? Did you understand it here? No doubts here. He is bringing something called civil society. अब ये है क्या, इसको हम लोग अभी देखेंगे कि civil society को ये क्यों, what actually is civil society. It is also an instrument. You see here, civil society too, like state already was a capitalist instrument. Similarly, civil society is also a capitalist instrument. This is what he's saying, that civil society also is a capitalist instrument. Now, how civil society, religious institutions, cultural, educational, media, etc. This is what composes the civil society. So there are different kind of components of civil society. See, this is not the state, right? This will not be counted as the state. All these religious institutions, all these cultural institutions, all these media institutions, they are not state. What are they? They are civil society. It is also an instrument of the capitalist. It acts as a cushion or a shock absorber. This is where his main blame game is. What he said, that civil society is a cushion, a shock absorber. For what? See, capitalism is exploiting the proletariat. Proletariat gets angry over the capitalist. Now here comes civil society. Anger of the proletariat, which is directed towards the bourgeois or the capitalist. Civil society provides a shock absorber. Is it all right here? Please tell me. So it is equally important to revolt against the civil society as well. That we are seeing how it provides. But you understood how it is, how what Gramsci is alleging, how it is that we are seeing now. Okay, I'll explain again. Wait. See, listen carefully. Forget all the flowcharts and what is written here. State is a bourgeois instrument, as per Karl Marx, right? State is in the hand of the bourgeois who exploits the proletariat, and bourgeois directs the state. State makes such policy which will be exploitative for the proletariat. Now, Gramsci is saying state is not the only instrument. There is another instrument that is called civil society. Okay, civil society is the other instrument, which is again an instrument in the hands of the bourgeois. They act as a cushion. Proletariat is angry. Proletariat wants to revolt against the state. Civil society would come into being. Your religious institutions, your education, your media. Your media might be siding with your government. Okay, you might be hearing all the good things about your government. It's a part of civil society, media, but it is telling you good things about government. A state-sponsored media like they have in China and North Korea. Global Times, China का mouthpiece है. वो हमेशा they will always praise the Chinese government. So Chinese people are like, okay, this is what is written in newspaper. That must be correct. So civil society is providing a cushion. आया समझ अब? Now let us see how it provides. आपने जो question पूछा है उसमें हम आते हैं कि how it provides. State represent coercive force. Allow me to draw certain things now. In order to see, Gramsci is tough. Marx himself is a bit complicated, and when you add a variety, it becomes more tough. Now you see here, power. Power can be of two types. Okay, power can be of two types. Like, can you tell me soft power? This would be passive. It will force you to follow, and this would be no. If I ask you soft power of India, you would say trade hegemony, Bollywood, cricket, yoga, Ayurveda, music, cuisines. These are the soft parts of India. Okay, these are the soft parts of India, right? So this is what he also says, that power has two aspects. One is the hard power. Hard power is coercive in nature. Coercive in nature as in it will make you obey that thing. You will not have an option. You will have to attend it and do it. That is what hard power is. But soft power will attract you towards the very thing, towards the very state. Now, how it is done? This is actually, you can see the hard power. You can see the military of a country, the military might of a country you can see, and you can actually see, this can be seen, but this is invisible. You know, India has a certain number of troops, India has a certain number of weaponries. So these are the damages that our military can inflict on the enemy. One can make an estimate, but how can you make an estimate on how will yoga or Ayurveda or cricket or Bollywood or song or cuisine, how many people will be attracted towards India, okay, or will be interested in India because of these things? This is invisible. This cannot be quantified, right? This is the thing about soft power. Now what he says, Gramsci says that what civil society does, no, he's blaming them that they actually establish soft power of capitalism. That civil society establishes the soft power of capitalism. Okay, and he actually dominates through soft power. He molds your opinion through soft power, through civil society. And when, if at all, this soft power fails, then capitalists would use. Is it all right? This is what his allegation is. That capitalist is not ruling you directly, like Karl Marx has said during his time. Capitalist is taking the aid of civil society. You are under a perception that civil society is showing you the soft power of capitalism. Like they may say that so and so company has engaged into CSR, corporate social responsibility, and they will print it on their front page. Okay, this is the soft part. This is what they are saying. Of course, this is what Gramsci talks about. This is a version of neo-capitalism itself, where civil society is hand in gloves with the capitalist. Now you will understand these points very easily. State represents coercive force. Civil society is the power of attraction. Domination can be done by either force or through consent. This is how you dominate anyone. Either you force the person or you make him or her agree to what you are saying through his or her consent. Hegemony is domination by consent. It aims to control the mind, not the body. Please, these are very important lines. Hegemony literally transforms into Dadagiri. So when you hear Dadagiri, you will imagine a Gunda. Right, your NCRT has a full chapter on American hegemony. You know this class 12 textbook. Imagine we are strategic partners, India and US, and the NCRT, the government book, has a full chapter on American hegemony. This is what socialism does in education departments. So what he's saying that hegemony is through domination, through consent. You will be forced to believe, and then you will willingly participate in it. Okay, it will control your mind. You will not be forced. You will not be forcefully taken to concentration camps or to prison, because your thinking will be aligned in such a way that your mind will become a party to the capitalist. Civil society manufactures hegemony. Okay, civil society actually manufactures hegemony. Any doubt here? Please feel free to ask anything. See, he would also say something like before we move to revolution, I want you to know certain more aspects about it. Like yes. Now, what would he say here? You see, he's blaming the civil society for all the ills. Now, why? Now, there is something called consent. You have seen this consent. It will be manufactured. And the hegemony. Now, this will become something like common sense through manufacturing of consent. Now, how? Because what does Marxist talks about? His main concern is he wants to ban the private property. Why? To achieve what is the aim? Socio-economic equality, right? This is what he wants to achieve. So unless all of us start talking about socio-economic equality, unless all of us start discussing socio-economic equality, it will never become common sense. Isn't this what we call narrative or discourse? Understood all of you? That's what he's saying, that you need to capture the common sense. Make Marxist discourse a language of common sense. Okay, bring it here. Let everyone freely participate and discuss in it. Okay, and who manufactures hegemony? The civil society does. See, I'll give you an Indian example. Until the arrival of social media, wasn't the mainstream media deciding the narrative? It was the mainstream media, the news channels and the newspapers which were deciding the narrative. Actually, yes, environment protection is not mainstream because we all are not talking about it. Electoral reform, judicial reforms, police reforms, however passionate me and you become as students of political science, it is not mainstream because the rest of the India is not concerned about it, right? So what is he saying? That you need to make it a common sense topic. You need to discuss it. You need to make it famous. Everyone is understanding. So until the arrival of social media, the mainstream media was the gospel truth. Whatever was written, whatever was shown on the channels, we used to take it at the face value. With the arrival of social media, the fake news are often busted. See, I'm not for social media trials. I'm not encouraging it. I'm not saying that social media is always 100% right. But to a large extent, it has challenged the monopoly of mainstream media. Right? A reporter says something, person writes something. What happens? Within a fraction of a second, within few minutes, there are posts countering the claim that no, you are wrong. Okay, like I'll give you an example. Yesterday, there's this guy called Ashutosh. He was a journalist, then he became an Aam Aadmi Party leader, then he was kicked away from AAP also. Now, few days back, I guess last week, Yogi Adityanath, the Chief Minister of UP, changed the name. He's doing this name changing often. He changed the name and from Mughal to Shivaji. Now there was an uproar on this. And this Ashutosh guy was saying that why are you so much against the Mughals? Akbar used to offer Arg to Suryadev. This is what Ashutosh said on television, that Akbar used to offer Arg. You know, Arg to Suryadev. Now everyone was like, what is he saying? Now suppose if there was no social media, maybe people would have believed what he said. But all people asked him, where did you read this? Provide us with one proof, one first-hand source, one authentic source. He could not. The lie was busted. So narrative is largely decided now by social media. Right? All of you understood this? Of course it is, but then Gramsci would not call it hegemony. Please understand, he's a Marxist. He is trying to bring socialism. Why would he call it? Why would anyone criticize his own theory? Now revolution. Passive revolution is needed to capture civil society and establish counter-hegemony. No. Yeah. Gramsci would say what Sharath you are saying, that civil society, social media is also a part of civil society. Gramsci would say that. But social media is a double-edged sword. It can backfire as well, right? It can burst your narrative as well to capture civil society and establish counter-hegemony. War of position to be used for passive hegemony. Now, please try to understand what is war of position. He's saying this very, some deep understanding of history, and we will try to understand it here. What is the word that he has used? War of position. Now, what is this war of position? You see, and this will be used for passive hegemony. You know what is passive hegemony? Civil society. You need to counter it. But first, in order to counter, you need to be on the driving seat. You need to capture it first. Now, how do I explain this? Like, in order to counter the narrative, like you can also say, you can say this, that there is some manufacturing of hegemony by civil society at the behest of the capitalists. This is going on right now. He's saying that contrary to the Marxist violent revolution, there has to be a passive revolution, and for that, what is needed? First, this one would be a very long drawn policy or strategy. It would be a fairly long drawn policy or strategy. Now in India, now please don't take it personally, Brahmins. Okay. Now what is the thing with Brahmins here? They will be saying that they were the dominant. So now a war of position will emerge to challenge the dominant position of Brahmins. That would be what is called subaltern, the Dalit. So the position has been challenged because until now only one community was there. Here comes the second community. Okay, are you understanding? So how it was done? It was done through the same thing, by challenging the hegemony of Brahmins, the dominant position. That is why it's a war of position is unleashed by another. Decide on the further hegemony, further narrative. Okay, and for passive revolution, this will be used. So if a Brahmin keeps on talking about Varna system, reading Vedas and Upanishads, okay, who are fit to do the Upanayan Sanskar, I hope you understand what is Upanayan, the Janeu, okay, who are not fit to do that, who can recite Gayatri Mantra, then the alternative, the war of position would be to challenge these things and come up with an alternative. No, we can also do that. We can equally do things that you can do. We are equally apt at it. If you take pride in Vedas, we will take pride in Buddhism, although Buddha is crypto-Upanishadic, right? So they will start quoting from Tripitakas of Buddhism instead of Upanishads. So here emerges another dominant war of position, which will confront this position It will either subdue it or it will become equally important. Understood? This is how it will work here. Now what would happen? Another thing he will talk about. ये तो एक passive resistance की बात थी. Now second thing, let me first rub this so that you can kind of read the next one also. Direct attack. After passive revolution, there needs to be a direct attack. What is that direct attack? That is war of maneuvering, quick positioning, war of maneuvering. What is there? It involves capturing the state, but less chance of success if war of position is not won. Now, again, through some examples, we will understand it. See, first thing first, what would you call that? It was a direct war, correct? It was not a war of position by any means. It was an out and out war. From Meerut, people came, Mughal Pandey and everyone, and they proclaimed the Bahadur Shah Zafar as their king, and they started winning few posts. What happened after 2 years? This revolt was brutally crushed. All of them either escaped or were killed or jailed, right? Why it happened? Gramsci says, and he has given this example, because these revolutionaries did not focus on this. They never worked on passive hegemony. They straight away went for war of maneuver. That is, it was bound to fail. Now, 1942, Quit India movement. This time, passive hegemony had already worked. Okay. Gandhi had already dislodged the idea from the mind of an average Indian that Britishers will do any good to us. Now, this was the prevailing wisdom during moderate era. 1884, when Congress was formed. W.C. Banerjee, the first Congress president, said that we are more loyal servants of the British. We are more loyal than the British themselves. We want British rule in India to continue forever. They have given us so many good things. Now, Gandhi broke this myth that this is not what you are thinking about. Gandhi had a parallel narrative with his Satya and Ahimsa, right? So this time, when the homework was done on war of position, then when you launch an out and out war, then you succeed. It applies to almost all things, right? People who are trying to destabilize India, to undermine the state of India, to make it an anarchic, trying to dislodge the integrity and sovereignty of India, they are engaged into war of position. Don't you see that? Because they know they cannot win the war of maneuvering. Set the narrative. Convince the, what is he saying? Control the mind, not the body. Set the narrative and then go for the assault. Narratives win instead of armies. Because then what will happen? If the narrative is with you, even if you are losing a direct war, people would come in your support. And when the people themselves undermine the set narrative, then that set narrative is ending. Isn't he more dangerous than Karl Marx? How many of you have understood this? Of course, more practical it is. A more lethal and practicable and polished version of Karl Marx. No, don't relate to Machiavelli. Machiavelli is not about setting the narrative. Machiavelli can be compared only with Chanakya. How is he that? Where does Machiavelli work on narrative? He is living into his own ideas. He's a realist. Of course, we'll discuss. There is a full chapter called Discourse. Direct attack involves capturing the state, but less chance of any success or victory if war of position is not won. If you're struggling there, then you won't be able to win here. Quit India movement was war of maneuver. 1857 revolution was also war of maneuver, but it lacked the war of position. The groundwork was not done. Britishers crushed Quit India movement also. I'm not saying Quit India, else India would have become free in 1842 itself. Correct. Britishers crushed Quit India movement, but you see that how quickly it yielded the result because the narrative was working for the Indians. Gandhi established counter hegemony. Okay. He came up with the concept of Gram Swaraj, democracy for colonies, okay, Satya Ahimsa, non-cooperation, all these things he floated around. Masses participated with him. English were in a dilemma, how to deal with this guy, correct? He took on the concepts called white man burden. You know what is white man burden? Rudyard Kipling has written on it. Rhodes has written on it that people whose color of skin is white, they are superior and they have this responsibility to make the non-whites civilized, and by civilized it means Christianized. That is why the Christian missionaries were having a free run in India during East India Company. So he challenged this. He said, how is the color of skin so important? Why do you think that being white means being superior? Why would Christian missionaries come and convert when we ourselves have the likes of Gita and even Quran? What is the need to convert? Britishers say that we give you rule of law, but where is the rule of law happening in India? You have kept it in your country. You have never implemented it in India. So this was the Gandhian impact, right? This was his counter hegemony. This was his war of position before the actual war started. Correct? He stressed the role performed by human agency in historic change. He here means Gramsci. Economic crisis. He is saying that capitalism, Karl Marx has said that capitalism has its own seeds of destruction, overproduction, underproduction, stocks being piled up, not being able to sell the stocks. You are shutting down your factories. Your workers are becoming workless. They are revolting. No, this is not happening. This is what Karl Marx said. Gramsci is saying it's not happening because human agency is not involved. What you have described is an economic process. An economic crisis, which is an economic process on itself, by itself, is not going to support capitalism. You need to make a corresponding human element you need to bring with it. You need to attach with it. Gramsci opined that concession rests at the level of civil society and therefore must be won there. On the other hand, coercion rests at the level of the state, more specifically at the level of political society. So he's saying if you think that capitalism will be under a crisis and people who are facing job loss due to factories being shut. Now, why factories are being shut? We have talked about it, overproduction, stocks not being sold. They will not revolt. They will let it pass it at anything else because you have not done the war on pollution. You have to tell them that this is coming your way and be ready for that. You will be soon kicked out of your job. Then when they will see, then they will react. Violent, vehement reaction would come. Else, economic crisis would be a mischance. Understood? Seriously, how many of you understood it? And how many of you can relate it with any day-to-day example? None of you? Nahi samajh aaya? I'll explain it again. Please tell me. See, capitalism will have a crisis as described by Karl Marx. Okay, I'm explaining it again. Okay, let me make something now. This way, you'll be more able to understand things. Wait, forget these slides. यहाँ तक you are clear that workers will revolt under working for capitalists as per Karl Marx. Why? How would revolution come for a Marxist? Revolution would come for Marx because of crisis of capitalism. What would happen here? Now, here we will see Gramsci. Here is Marx. What would happen here? Capitalist is working with profit motive. He will go for mass production. Profit motive also means cut cost, also means giving very low wages to workers. Now, lower wages to worker and mass production. Used of our goods because production has increased, but workers are getting lower wages, which means they are having so lower wage that they cannot purchase. Unsold stock, factory closed. Tell me if you are okay with this. Just tell me if you are okay with this. Nothing more. All of you. I think no doubt here. This is what Karl Marx told us. Now, where will Gramsci differ from him? Gramsci would say that until there is war of position to create the counter narrative, you will not be able to utilize the crisis of capitalism. What is he saying? This will be a waste. Okay, which would be a waste? This crisis of capitalism will be a sheer waste because you have not done this. People will take it casually. This will not happen. Worker being unemployed, going for revolution will not happen because the worker will take it very casually. And these things are bound to happen. Business में तो होता ही रहता है, right? मालिक के साथ दिक्कत है. Malik is having a tough time. When he will have a good time, he will give us regular salary. But when you have already done the war of position, when you have imbibed this idea deep within his mind that this is an exploitative system under which you are working, and if you have made him understand entire context that he wants to increase the profit, he's making you work so hard, more units are being manufactured, but who will buy that? Because we don't have money to buy that. So these things will remain there in the stock, in the godown, and then he will close the factory. Then you will not have anything to eat if he closes his factory. Then when he closes the factory, then only the worker will revolt. Because the idea was already known to him. It was not an alien concept. Had he not know about, had he been unaware, he would not have it. That is why counter narrative is important. Now is it all right? Please tell all of you who were asking me to repeat. Shreya, Santosh, Ram. Okay. Anything else here? He's saying make him aware of what is going to happen now. Else it will happen, he will never react to it. He will take it as a normal casual stuff. But when he is aware of what this nasty system of capitalism is about to unleash on him and his family, then he will revolt. Okay. Whenever I see a journalist or an activist writing things like, if this trend continues, if government does not listen to it, then so and so section of people will come on roads. I'm like, of course they have planned it. That's why he's writing on his Twitter, in the newspaper columns. They have already planned it. Now what he's doing is war of positions. He's conveying the same thing to the masses, which they have already, few people have already planned at their level. And now they are conveying to the masses through their social media posts, through their newspaper columns, through their newsroom discussions. And every single time it has happened. Mark my words, for the past 6 years, I'm seeing it. Every single time it has happened. When they say, I'm like, wow, something or the other is lined up. They are not the only one who know Karl Marx. Understood or not? All the rights, by Bangalore, right from Muzaffarnagar to Bangalore rights. So humans have to be taken into confidence. Okay, economic crisis by itself, okay, it should be itself, themselves will also work, would not subvert. Human participation is needed. Human need to be agitated. Oh, you are doing this thing. This was bound to happen. I knew about it. Okay. Gramsci opined that consensus rests at the level of civil society. Okay, they are the one molding it for the capitalist, and therefore it must be won there. Civil society needs to be captured. Question rests at the level of the state, more especially at the level of political society. This is what I wanted to discuss with you today. There is a 10 to 15-minute thing left here, along with few main questions that I'll cover tomorrow. Slightly complex, but if you understand it, it's not at all complex, right? Correct or not? Okay, taking your leave.